So I heard you might be looking for some summer reads. If you're looking for relatively diverse recommendations, I think you're in the right place. You're also in the right place if you're looking for some reads that are maybe not so popular, books that you may have not heard of or you have heard of and you're unsure if you should read. I have 10 recommendations for you, both fiction and nonfiction. Let's go ahead and get into the first recommendation. It is Layla Motley's The Girls Who Grew Big. This novel is from last year, 2025. It's sort of like a literary fiction about a group of friends, all of which are mothers at a young age or became mothers at a young age. Adela Woods is 16 years old and pregnant. When her parents discover her secret, they banish her from prep school and her elite swim team in Indiana and send her to her grandmother's home in Padua Beach, Florida. In Florida, Adela befriends Emery, who brings her newborn to high school, determined to graduate despite the odds. Simone, mother of 4-year-old twins, who weighs her options when she finds herself pregnant again, and the rest of the girls, a group of young moms who raise their growing brood in the back of Simone's red truck. Swept into a world that upends the rules she has always known, Adela flirts with an older man, tests the bonds between the girls, and seeks an answer to a question she is only just beginning to ask. What kind of mother will she be? Told through 3 young mothers' voices, The Girls Who Grew Big depicts the shifting sands of these friends' secrets and betrayals and confirms Layla Motley's promise by offering an explosive new perspective on what it means to be a young woman. This novel is about becoming a young mom. It's about friendship. It's a really beautiful story and it's written really well. This novel I read when it came out, and honestly, it's been one that I've still been thinking about. I read it like last summer. It's been almost a year and I'm still thinking about it. I think that says a lot. Like, it's too early for a reread, but it definitely is a book I would totally read again this summer. It is definitely a great book to read if you are so inclined. The next book I have for you is from 2023 and it is Adelaide by Genevieve Wheeler. As you can tell, I got this book through Book of the Month. When I read the description on the app, I was like, this book is going to be perfect for me. I was completely right. It is about a woman in a relationship, essentially, and a relationship that is not the best for her. In love. For 26-year-old Adelaide Williams, an American living in dreamy London, meeting Rory Hughes was like a lightning bolt out of the blue. This charming Englishman was the one she wasn't even looking for. Is it enough? Does he respond to texts, honor his commitments, make advanced plans? Sometimes, rarely, and no, not at all. But when he shines his light on her, the world makes sense, and Adelaide is convinced that in his heart he's fallen just as deeply as she has. Then, when Rory is rocked by an unexpected tragedy, Adelaide does everything in her power to hold him together, even if it means losing herself in the process. When love asks too much of us, how do we find the strength to put ourselves first? With unflinching honesty and heart, this relatable debut from a fresh new voice explores grief and mental health while capturing the timeless nature of what it's like to be young and in love, with your friends, with your city, and with a person who cannot, will not, love you back. This is also a book that I would reread. And again, yes, this is another sort of like literary, contemporary fiction and a really solid piece of work. The last novel that I have for you is Hidden Pictures by Jason Reklack. This is a horror novel. You're asking, in summertime? Well, yes, I guess if you know, you know. Summer read. I think this is a perfect novel for summer read, or if you like horror year-round, or if, you know, you just want to change it up this summer. Hidden Pictures was so fantastic. My mind was honestly blown when I read this book. It's like multimedia storytelling because there are images in here. Well, here, let me go ahead. I'm going to read the synopsis and then we'll get back to the pictures. Fresh out of rehab, Mallory Quinn takes a job in the affluent suburb of Springbrook, New Jersey as a babysitter for Ted and Caroline Maxwell. She's to look after their 5-year-old son, Teddy. Mallory immediately loves this new job. She lives in Maxwell's pool house, goes on nightly runs, and has the stability she craves. And she sincerely bonds with Teddy, a sweet, shy boy who is never without his sketchbook and pencil. His drawings are the usual fare: trees, rabbits, balloons, but one day he draws something different: a man in a forest dragging a woman's lifeless body. As the days pass, Teddy's artwork becomes more sinister and his stick figures evolve into more complex, lifelike sketches well beyond the ability of any 5-year-old. Mallory begins to suspect these are glimpses of an unsolved murder from long ago, perhaps relayed by a supernatural force lingering in the forest behind the Maxwell's house. With help from a handsome landscaper and an eccentric neighbor, Mallory sets out to decipher the images and save Teddy, while coming to terms with a tragedy in her own past before it's too late. As I said, pictures. So, as we know, we have this 5-year-old Teddy who is drawing images. You know, in your average normal novel, the images would just be described to you. But in this novel, you actually get to see the pictures. And I think it was genius. It is genius. And I love this book so much. And again, another novel that I would reread. So here's an example of an image that is depicted in the novel. It is not the creepiest of them, I promise. It gets a lot creepier. I just don't want to spoil anything. I just think it's genius that we get to actually see the photos that the kid is drawing, and I think it's amazing. Now to the second category, we have nonfiction. Actually, technically memoir. So memoir, because I do have nonfictions as well, but this is like the kind of memoir, biography, autobiography category. I think they're great to read in warm weather. Starting with this first one that I've heard people kind of complain about it. The movie too, there is an adaptation. Although I really like this book a lot, this memoir. It's really good. I don't understand exactly what the hate for it is. I think people are just mad that, well, maybe we could get into that after. It is Eat, Pray, Love by Elizabeth Gilbert. I have read this memoir twice, actually, and I would read it a third time. I do want to read it a third time. I will read it again, I am sure. Eat, Pray, Love. It is about a woman who is going through a divorce and decides to travel to Italy, India, and Indonesia to kind of recover and find herself. Some people, for some reason, they're like, boo-hoo, a rich white woman traveled the world? And I'm confused. I don't think she's writing to make you feel bad for her in any way, shape, or form. Let's not forget that we're all human. We all go through things, and she decided to write about it. So what exactly the problem is, I am not sure. This is 20 years old. In her early 30s, Elizabeth Gilbert had everything a modern American woman was supposed to want: husband, country home, successful career. But instead of feeling happy and fulfilled, she was consumed by panic and confusion. This wise and rapturous book is the story of how she left behind all those outward marks of success and set out to explore 3 different aspects of her nature, against the backdrop of 3 different cultures: pleasure in Italy, devotion in India, and on the Indonesian island of Bali, a balance between worldly enjoyment and divine transcendence. For more than a decade, Eat, Pray, Love has touched the world and changed countless lives, inspiring and empowering millions of readers to search for their own best selves. And that's exactly what I think of this memoir as. It's supposed to kind of inspire you to find yourself in different ways. And yeah, she travels the world. If you can't travel the world, that's fine. You can travel your state. You can travel your city. You can do something to feel more connected to yourself, to grow as a person, to be whoever, to do whatever. And I think it's really beautiful. Also, like, I don't know, inspiring, and I think it is worth the read 100%. The next memoir is on the sadder side, but it is still good nonetheless. For summer, it's also kind of adventurous, and what better time for adventure than the summertime? What better time to be inspired than the summertime? And it is Between Two Kingdoms, a memoir of a life interrupted by Suleika Jawad. It started with an itch up and down her legs, like 1,000 invisible mosquito bites. Then, a few weeks shy of her 23rd birthday, Zuleika Jawad was given a diagnosis, leukemia, with a 35% chance of survival. When she finally walked out of the cancer ward 4 years later, after countless rounds of chemo, a clinical trial, and a bone marrow transplant, she was, according to the doctors, cured. But as she would soon learn, a cure is not where the work of healing ends. It's where it begins. To begin to live again, Jawad embarked on a 15,000-mile road trip across the country to meet some of the strangers, teachers and artists, a teenage cancer patient, and a death row inmate who had written to her during her time in the hospital. Along the way, she learned about how we move forward when life is interrupted by heartbreak, loss, disaster, or illness, and how we survive in the constant transitions that are essential to the human experience. Between Two Kingdoms is a profound chronicle of survivorship and a fierce, tender, and inspiring exploration of what it means to begin again. It's really just, again, inspirational, adventurous, a little heartbreaking, but it's great. And then I also listened to this on audio, by the way, so I think this is, I can confirm the audio is fantastic. If you want an audiobook or you want to read something via audio, this I would recommend 100%. Between Two Kingdoms, it is so good. The next one is for music lovers, and that would be the book that I am almost finished with right now, Love is a Mixtape by Rob Sheffield. The reason, this also is a little bit sad, not too sad, but not as sad as Between Two Kingdoms, but there are things that happen in this book here. But the thing that makes it the most summer is the music. So if you are interested in taking a trip back to the 90s with some flashbacks from the late 60s, the 70s, this is the book for you, because I've listened to so far, like, I think at this point probably like 20, and by the end I think I will probably have listened to maybe over 30 hours of music. As we are taking our trips and sitting by the pool, you can kind of put together a playlist of all the songs that are here. Mixtapes. We all have our favorites. Stick one into a deck, press play, and you're instantly transported to another time in your life. For Rob Sheffield, that time was one of miraculous love and unbearable grief, a time that spanned 7 years. It started when he met the girl of his dreams and ended when he watched her die in his arms. Using the listing of 15 of his favorite mixtapes, Rob shows you that the power of music to build a bridge between people is stronger than death. You'll read these words, perhaps surprisingly, with joy in your heart and a song in your head, the one that comes to mind when you think of the love of your life. That's Love is a Mixtape. This is the shortest that I've recommended thus far, so if you're looking for something short, a little bit throwback vibes, this is the one, and it is from 2007. The next two, one of which I have read, the one I have not, but it's kind of a Love is a Mixtape alternative. Love is a Mixtape is a lot predominantly rock music. So if you're looking for music that goes beyond that, a little hip hop, we have Questlove's Music is History, and Shea Serrano's Hip Hop and Other Things. This is the one I have not read. This is the one I have read. Now, Music is History, it was a long time ago, so I don't exactly remember the contents of it, but I think you will be taken down songs of the past, and I definitely do want to reread this one because I do want to create a playlist of all the songs that are mentioned here. I'll go ahead and read you the synopsis. Music is History combines Questlove's deep musical expertise with his curiosity about history, examining America over the past 50 years. Focusing on the years 1971 to the present, Questlove finds the hidden connections in the American tapes, whether investigating how the blaxploitation era reshaped Black identity or considering the way disco took an assembly line approach to Black genius. And these critical inquiries are complemented by his own memories as a music fan and the way his appetite for pop culture taught him about America. A history of the last half-century and an intimate conversation with one of music's most influential and original voices. Music is History is a singular look at contemporary America. That is Music is History. So again, as you're taking your road trips, and the other trips, you can read this, get acquainted with history, get acquainted with some music, and have some fun. Okay, and now we have hip hop and other things, which again, I have not read, but it says this is the third and final book in the And Other Things series. The first one was about basketball, the second one was about movies, and this one is about hip hop. They're all different in content but similar in structure, which is to say each chapter here is a different hip hop question that needs to be answered. Sometimes the question seems straightforward, but it's actually philosophical. Example, Tupac or Biggie? Other times the question seems silly, but is actually serious. Example, was Kendrick's Good Kid, Mad City better than Kanye's My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy? And occasionally, the question is all of those things at once. Where does Cardi B's 2018 sit in the ranking of rappers' best individual year? There's also a bunch of art in the book and some charts in the book. You're going to love it, or you won't. I don't know, but I hope it's the first one. Shay. I'll probably end up reading this before I reread Music is History because it sounds like going to be fun, a lot of interesting things in there, and I'll probably get some hip-hop education, and I'm excited for that, and I can't wait. And now we are at our final two recommendations. This is if you're wanting to have like a hot political summer, and if so, may I introduce to you White Rural Rage and Poverty by America. I read both of these books and they were both on audio. We'll start with Poverty by America by Matthew Desmond. Essentially, poverty is engineered here in America. You don't necessarily have to read this book to know that, but it helps, or at the very least, it doesn't hurt. Why does the United States, the richest country on earth, have more poverty than any other advanced democracy? Good question, right? This is the question that acclaimed sociologist Matthew Desmond answers in this book. Drawing on history, research, and original reporting, he shows how affluent Americans knowingly and unknowingly keep poor people poor. Some lives are made small so that others may grow. This elegantly written and compassionate book gives us new ways of thinking about and solving a morally urgent problem. Desmond builds a startlingly original and ambitious case for ending poverty. He calls on all of us to become poverty abolitionists, to usher in a new age of shared prosperity and, at last, true freedom. This is an amazing piece of work, if I do say so myself. It is one of, like, I guess that they're about the same. They look the same, but this was like 6 hours and this was like 11 hours. So this is like the shortest of the books that I read for my like hot girl end of winter. I also read Men Who Hate Women and The Whiteness of Wealth. Those are great if you want to read those as well, but these are the only two that I have physically. I plan on getting the other two at a later time. Poverty is engineered. Have compassion for the poor. The poor are kept poor. If you do not understand how, this book is for you. And if you want to be more informed and be immersed in some really interesting statistics, this book is also for you. And then we also have White Rural Rage by Tom Schaller and Paul Waldman. White Rural Rage, The Threat to American Democracy. Fantastic piece of work. White rural voters hold the greatest electoral sway of any demographic group in the United States. Yet rural communities suffer from poor healthcare access, failing infrastructure, and severe manufacturing and farming job losses. Rural voters believe our nation has betrayed them, and to some degree, they're right. And their resulting rage poses an existential threat to America. In White Rural Rage, Tom Schaller and Paul Waldman argue that U.S. democracy has become deeply vulnerable to rural whites whose attitude might best be described as, I love my country, but not our country. This phenomenon is the patriot paradox of rural America. The citizens who take such pride in their patriotism are also the least likely to defend core American principles. And by stoking rural whites' anger rather than actually addressing the hard problems they face, conservative politicians and talking heads create a feedback loop of resentments that are undermining American democracy. Schaller and Waldman both provocatively critique the structures that permit rural whites disproportionate influence over American governance and reimagine a better future for both rural people and the rest of America. So essentially, it's like how these rural white people, they're voting against their own interests, and a lot of them don't exactly realize it, especially because the people who they vote for are pointing the finger. It's not us, it's them. It's not us, it's them. So that explains why white rural people and other white people, you know, they think it's the immigrants, they think it's the minorities, they think it's the Black people, they think it's everything else except for what it actually is. And a lot of times it's themselves. And in as of recently, one of the prime examples is how I am seeing online that there are white people in majority white states, red states, that are, you know, showing up as they should to their town council meeting and saying no to AI data centers. And I'm just like, who did you vote for? Republicans, Trump, they think climate change is a hoax. Well, they don't actually think that. They just say that. Maybe some of them do, but I think they are wickedly smart individuals and they know how to manipulate the masses. But they're like, climate change isn't real. And so then their followers, you know, they don't vote. You know, the other side, we believe in climate change and that we should be good to the environment and the national parks. So we would not vote for a person who might have interest in just money or running the country like a business, which is just about money. They're voting for a person who outwardly does not believe in climate change, and then you're going to show up and protest data centers, a harm to the environment. It doesn't make any sense. So yeah, this couldn't be more truer. And again, just like Poverty by America, you don't have to read the book to know, but it helps to support your own arguments, to be more well-rounded in your information, and to have a book that you can recommend to people who need the same, or who you want to say, hey, you are doing something that does not necessarily make any sense. If you do not believe me, read this, you know? So yeah, Right Roll Rage, Poverty by America, Hip Hop and Other Things, Music is History, Love is a Mixtape, Between Two Kingdoms, Eat, Pray, Love, Hidden Pictures, Adelaide, and The Girls Who Grow and The Girls Who Grew Big. Those are my summer recommendations for you. If you enjoyed this video, I do recommend that maybe you subscribe. Turn my notifications on, stick around. Not all of my videos are like this. You can look at my channel and see what other things that I post. We'll see each other next time. Bye!